Good evening and thank you for joining us. Ontario released its annual Sunshine List this morning, naming all public sector employees who earned more than $100,000 in 2016. The list of names grew by 7% province-wide over the previous year, and it contains many of the usual suspects here in Thunder Bay, including members of law enforcement, educators, healthcare professionals, and our 2 MPPs. Some, however, wonder how relevant the list still is, as the $100,000 salary disclosure threshold has never changed to reflect the rate of inflation. 2016 was a good year for high-ranking members of the Thunder Bay Police Service. According to the newly released Ontario Sunshine List, Chief J.P. Levesque received a 23% raise, topping the list of municipal earners at more than $247,000. Newly appointed City Manager Norm Gale wasn't far behind, bringing in $236,000, and Fire Chief John Hay made more than $161,000. Overall, 312 City of Thunder Bay employees made the list. Gale says many of those are police officers and firefighters.
Police officers and firefighters make up about 80% of the names on our list. Those numbers in police alone have increased by 75 people this year.
Gale notes the municipal contingent would be substantially smaller if the Sunshine List had been adjusted for inflation since its inception more than 20 years ago. Thunder Bay DSAB CAO Bill Bradica also made the list, earning $163,000. Lakehead University President Brian Stevenson was once again the highest-earning educator in the city at $361,000. His Confederation College counterpart Jim Matter was paid nearly $227,000. Lakehead Public Schools Director Ian McRae and Catholic Board Director Pino Tassone earned $198,000 and $172,000 respectively. On the healthcare front, New Health Sciences Centre CEO Jean Bartkowiak took in $340,000, about $22,000 more than Executive VP Mark Henderson. St. Joseph's Care Group President Tracy Buckler and Northwest Lynn CEO Laura Kokaczynski respectively pulled in $315,000 and $310,000. Our 2 MPPs and cabinet ministers, Michael Gravel and Bill Morrow, made $165,000. Morrow says he doesn't really have a problem with the current $100,000 disclosure threshold.
It's neither here nor there for me. I mean, I think it's strong and it's positive that there's public disclosure. I think people like that. We have it. It falls upon municipalities to be disclosed as well. And I think people want that today.
The names of more than 123,000 Ontarians appear on the 2016 list, up from nearly 116,000 the previous year. Big box stores like Home Depot and Walmart are expected to follow Canadian Tire, trying to get their property assessment reduced in Thunder Bay. Last November, Canadian Tire managed to reach a deal with MPAC, which bundled the property value of all its stores across the province. City Manager Norm Gale says, while this is a concern for residents, we aren't alone in dealing with the situation.
I can tell you we are concerned. Of that, there is no doubt. And also, may I add that this is not a Thunder Bay problem. While it is a Thunder Bay problem, this is province-wide.
The Canadian Tire deal allowed the company's taxes to decrease by an estimated 23% to 27%. That means the City of Thunder Bay will have to pay back approximately $1 million in taxes the company has paid since 2009. According to an MPAC spokesperson, this is the most efficient way to deal with the appeals made by big box corporations. Home Depot has already filed a similar appeal, which is expected to net an $800,000 tax rebate. Gale says City Council is aware of the impact this will have on residential property owners, but they can only take things one step at a time.
We already see that the impact of the Canadian Tire decision is on residential owners and on their taxes because of the ratios. You are right, we have limited ability to move within those ratios. So what can we do? We'll deal with it as it comes on a case-by-case basis, and it's at that time that Council will make decisions and provide direction as how to respond.
Gale adds the city has an appeal assessment reserve fund with a balance of $3.1 million. Another big cash injection today for Lakehead University. The Northern Ontario Heritage Fund is providing $5 million for LU's new Centre for Advanced Studies in Engineering and Sciences. The $20 million project will see an existing building at LU turned into a modern research center. The federal government previously announced $8 million for the upgrades. Now the province has added $1.5 million. The new facility will include biomass and freshwater research labs, an Aboriginal mentorship program, and a grad student lounge. Northern Development Minister Bill Morrow says Ontario is hoping to boost innovation in the city.
There will be jobs created through the fund. So we announced $5 million today. The job numbers given to us by Lakehead is in the neighborhood of 67 more jobs over the 5-year period associated with the fund. And so research jobs, knowledge-based jobs are much better at riding through the economic cycles that resource-based economies, like Thunder Bay can go through.
The project is set for completion next spring. Thunder Bay Police have announced a major drug bust. It's being called the largest seizure of crack cocaine ever in the city. The bust occurred last night around 10 o'clock. Drug and gang unit officers executed 4 search warrants at an apartment building in the South Cumberland Street area. As a result, more than $350,000 in crack cocaine, powder cocaine, and cash were confiscated, along with an imitation handgun and a baton. 4 men from Southern Ontario and 1 woman from Thunder Bay have been arrested and remain in custody. They're all facing charges of trafficking cocaine and possession of property over $5,000. 2 Thunder Bay police officers had to be taken to hospital for treatment of minor injuries following a 2-vehicle collision this morning. The officers were in an unmarked cruiser on Belrose Road when they stopped for a city works crew that was patching potholes. As they were stopped, they were rear-ended by a second vehicle. The driver of that car was also taken to hospital with minor injuries. Police are reminding motorists that crews are out and on foot doing minor road repair work at this time of year. They're cautioning drivers to slow down when approaching them. OPP and Sioux Lookout are investigating a double pedestrian fatality. It happened yesterday afternoon in the community of Hudson when 2 men were struck by a Canadian National Railway train. The victims have been identified as residents of the Lac Seul First Nation. Police say foul play is not suspected in the case. Lakehead University students are holding a vote that would see them pay a lot more money for city transit passes each year. Full-time undergraduate students currently pay a $104 fee every year, regardless if they use the bus pass or not. The current U-Pass agreement with Thunder Bay Transit expires at the end of August. The proposed increase would be 12% in September if students vote to keep the pass. Thunder Bay Transit has proposed a 5-year contract lasting until 2021 with increases every year. The Universal Bus Pass referendum voting began yesterday and goes until April 5th. Most of the students we spoke to today are in favor of the U-Pass plan, and the frequent users of the bus say they have no other options.
Because as an avid bus user, I use the bus very frequently, and having the bus pass is very accessible for me, and being able to get different places in town very easily using the buses. It's a very inexpensive price to pay for something that's so useful throughout the year.
Because bus transportation is really important for a lot of the students to get to and from school, and without it, I think a lot of people would have problem finding places to live nearby campus. Obviously, it is disappointing, but it's such an important tool to get to school that it is necessary.
I do think it's a big jump. At first, when I read what was happening, I was kind of like, wow, that's, I don't know, a little maybe unfair, but then when the calculations are all done and said, it's still a way better deal than not having anything.
If it's approved, the cost of the U-Pass will reach $195 by 2021. An historic agreement signed today to provide a sustainable future for flood-ravaged residents of the Kashechewan First Nation. The deal between Kashechewan, NAN, and the federal and provincial governments is aimed at developing a plan to help the James Bay community in the short, medium, and long term. The nearly 5,000 residents of the community regularly deal with spring floods that force widespread evacuations. This new agreement will look at improvements in housing, socioeconomic sustainability, health programs and facilities, infrastructure development, as well as schools and community facilities. The deal also calls for the community to relocate to higher ground. Kashechewan Chief Leo Friday expressed excitement over the deal. He says after many years of struggle, his people are finally getting the help they need. After more than 50 years in operation, the Thunder Bay Indian Friendship Centre is undergoing a name change. Starting in April, the facility on Cumberland Street will now be called the Indigenous Friendship Centre. According to Operations Director Serena Essex, the decision to change the name after all these years wasn't an easy one, but she says the word Indian no longer resonated with current members that use their services.
And it was actually really driven by our membership itself that we're looking to change our name to Indigenous. The real catalyst was actually our youth membership. The young people in our community really wanted to see that change. And I think it was in an effort to help reduce any kind of impacts of colonialism and to really claim that we are Indigenous to the land here and self-identify as Indigenous.
The Friendship Centre offers a wide range of programs to help strengthen the First Nation community in Thunder Bay. Essex says they're working on having the name change reflected on all their posters and business cards. There's no word on when the signage on the building will be changed. It's considered the battle that forged a nation. This year will mark the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge. Both of Thunder Bay's main school boards will be sending high school students to France next week to witness the ceremony firsthand and to honor the fallen soldiers from the Lakehead. Adam Riley has more.
On April 9, 1917, in the north of France, 97,000 members of the Canadian Expeditionary Force climbed out of the trenches and spent the next 3 days taking Vimy Ridge and accumulating 10,000 casualties in the process. Now, 100 years later, 84 students from Hammersholt, St. Ignatius and St. Patrick High Schools will travel to Vimy Ridge to tour the battlefields and monuments, as well as participate in the centennial anniversary of the battle. Hammersholt teacher Jason Timko says he was amazed by the students' interest and enthusiasm for the trip.
We came up with this plan about 2 years ago, pitched it at the principal about 18 months ago, and of course they said yes. And interestingly enough, we put it out to the students and we sold out this trip specifically in less than 2 weeks.
For many of the students, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
We learned about it in the classroom already, and now it's really going to be just coming to life when we're actually there and experiencing history. I think it's going to be a very powerful experience for me because people who fought in the war were just like a little bit older than me.
I'm going to be extremely proud. It's going to be sad. It's going to be overwhelming. It's hard to say how I'm going to feel when I'm there, because I know that when I'm there, it's going to be a completely different feeling.
MPs Patty Hajdu and Don Rusnak came out to send off the students at St. Patrick High School, as well as provide them with flags to be placed at the memorial. History teacher Dave Battistel says this is the third time students from St. Pat's have gone to the memorial, but being the centennial year, this trip will have much more meaning.
When you touch something, when you physically are there, it just brings everything alive. And so certainly with history, I always tell my students all the time that, touching history makes it that much more special. And I think it really drives home a lot of the lessons that we would talk about in the classroom.
Students from all three high schools will be tasked with researching and visiting the grave sites of many of the soldiers from Thunder Bay who fought but never made it home. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Students at a local Catholic elementary school had a special visit from a federal cabinet minister today. Grade 1 and 2 students at St. Pius X were excited to meet Labour Minister Patty Hajdu this morning. Students wrote letters and poems stating how proud they are to be Canadian and read them aloud to Hajdu. She says she was very moved by what the children wrote and could tell how much passion they have for the community. Hajdu also gave the kids a chance to ask any questions they had about her job or about Canada in general.
I just wanted to give them the message that we have a great country that's built on a belief that we're strong because of our diversity and that everybody has a way to participate. I wanted to hear what they had to say about their thoughts about being Canadian. It was great to hear about the pride that they have in their country, and I just wanted to be accessible to make sure that they have access to someone who represents them in Ottawa.
I'm very proud to be Canadian because I came from Canadian and I think it's best to be Canadian.
The children also asked Hajdu to tell Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to visit St. Pius someday. The Lakehead University Major Studio exhibition is now on display at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. Fourth-year students who are enrolled in the Honors Bachelor of Fine Arts program have displayed 3 pieces of artwork for the public to see. They've spent months working on their individual projects, and each artist had to narrow it down to their top 3 selections. These students have produced many different types of art over the past 4 years, and visitors will see the change to modern art. Afnan Malouk says her artwork attempts to show mass-produced material while reflecting the importance of ecological life.
Future organic chemists, what they can be making in order to contribute to a better ecological life. Instead of harming it. So that was kind of the influence behind this. It's very motivating to continue on as a professional artist and continue to make networks and connections throughout Thunder Bay.
My artwork is mainly focused on environmental issues and impacts and how humans interact with nature. The issues that surround Thunder Bay locally as well. So I think at this point it is very research-based.
The major studio exhibition will be running from now until April 16th at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. Well, it might not have been in anyone's bracket, but there was one basketball game that shone above the rest last night. The 3rd annual meeting between Superior Collegiate and the Law Enforcement All-Stars featured a special appearance by some Special Olympians. For the first time in 3 years, the exhibition game was a charity fundraiser. The event also included a performance from the school's cheerleading team and a bake sale of items made by the high school foods class. But it was the halftime basketball game between 2 Special Olympic teams that stole the show. All money raised will be used to purchase bocce ball sets that will be donated to local school programs and used in future Special Olympics.
It's really neat to see all of our officers and other law enforcement personnel from different agencies come together and play for a common goal. And at the end of the day, this is for fun, awareness, and raising some money.
But just overall, I feel more positive having since joined the Special Olympics. It gives me something to do outside of the grind of daily life. So to make that possible for other people, it's just, it makes me even happier.
Nearly $4,500 was raised for the Special Olympics. Well done.
No doubt. Well done weather-wise today as well. Fiona, any chance of an encore for tomorrow and Sunday?